Scum is described as an immersive, hyper realistic survival game. But does it live up to this description or just fall flat?
I don't know about hyper realistic, but there's a lot to Scum. I will give them that. There is a degree of realism as far as what I experienced. And again, there's a lot to the game and there's a lot to learn.
It has a very high learning curve. And while they do have a little bit of like a animated animatron kind of tutorial thing going on, let's be honest, it sucked. I was not impressed by it. And honestly, although I like where it randomly dropped you on the map, I was dropped in the winter area. And I can be honest, I didn't necessarily struggle with the temperature, but there wasn't a lot around me. So it made it kind of difficult to get, the spear going and the fire and et cetera, et cetera. But I think the thing that made me more or less kind of feel about Scum is the game has potential, but it is super rough and again has a really high learning curve.
Well, as we know, if you're a follower of the YouTube, if the podcast, whatever, I struggle with most tutorials anyways, even if they are good, straightforward tutorials. Scum was a very hard tutorial for me to try to get through. I think I spent like 30 minutes trying to build either the spear, the shovel, or something like that. I couldn't figure out how to get sticks into my inventory to make the backpack because you're not meant to put them in your inventory to make it. You're meant to have them laying out on the ground in front of you and use what's on the ground in order to make some of the items. Well, that wasn't really in the tutorial, so I spent I spent 30 minutes trying to bundle the sticks, trying to see if they would stack in my inventory. My tutorial also kept like skipping. When the animatronic lady was talking to me, I I would just the sentence would just end. She would be mid sentence and it would just end, and I'm like, Where were we going with this?" Because it just stopped, and then she would start talking again about something completely different, and I was very confused.
I played the game before, and I definitely haven't played the game for like years now, but it took me a while to remember actually how to do a lot of the stuff. Like you said, 10 to 20 minutes. But I moving away from the bad tutorial and maybe the over complex UI, which we'll talk a little bit later. The graphics though are damn good for a game like this.
The game looks great and it has potential even in the graphics. It's just a matter of giving it a chance, honestly. From in my opinion, I kind of probably wouldn't have kept playing it if it wasn't for the fact that I was doing research for the podcast. I probably would have quit about an hour in, but the more I played and the more of the world I explored and the more I saw, the more I was interested to see like what's going to happen next. What am I going to run into next? What area is going to open up in front of me? And part of that interest and part of that intrigue was the graphics and the way the game looked.
Yeah, the game was pretty. It definitely didn't continue to wow me long term. Like it was like this game has good graphics, it's nice textures, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't like I was constantly going like you would in Ark Survival Evolved or some other games where you're just like, wow, look at that, or that's really cool. It was a is a good looking game. Let's play. And maybe that's what they want. And then the other problem with this is that the UI is so convoluted, even the inventory system is difficult to understand. And the reason why it's difficult to understand is because they don't make it clear to you that there's a weight to the clothing as well as there are slots to the clothing. Now, it's cool that the more damage your clothing or items are, the less inventory slots it has. But you can only carry so much weight before you can't carry anything else. So you may have 7 extra slots open, but you're at max capacity weight wise, so you can't put anything else in it. And it just so many systems built into the game that they don't explain at all. And there is a knowledge base. And I know I'm talking for quite a while, and I want to give you a chance, I mentioned. But even with the knowledge base, it feels like you literally are opening up like this big, thick textbook and trying to flip through it, going, oh, what's this do? What's this do? And it just doesn't work for a survival game that's supposed to be more about PvP and the experience than about reading through context.
I mean, I was having to search for how to craft the stone spears and the basic tools because I couldn't find them. They were getting lost for me in the crafting menu and in just the massive amount of things that you can make. And that's not really a good start for not only a new player, but someone that's starting in a fresh world that is PvP, PvE. You're gonna find not only do you have to deal with the creatures, the beings in the game itself, but then you're also gonna have to deal with other players. And if you need to craft quickly, it's very difficult, in my opinion, to quickly craft anything to be able to defend yourself. And I think that's what kind of overwhelmed me for in the crafting side of things. It didn't really make me want to explore that side of the game anymore.
And I talk about this cluttered UI, and I would have to say the health system kind of falls prey to the same errors that we're talking about. But I also enjoy kind of the immersiveness of the health system. Like, it show a 3D render of my skin and bones and organs and show them being damaged and stuff. And then, like, I was able to click on them and see what parts were bleeding and stuff, and then use rags and stuff, which kind of made me think of a little bit of like Green Hell, but a little bit more complex.
The character creation stuff was really cool. It was really interesting how much you could customize your character and build not like necessarily your features and everything, but build your skills. I liked that. That was really cool to me. But again, you also brought up the bow. The bow, when I went through the tutorial, it actually told me that depending on the strength of the bow, you might not be able to draw it, or at least I got that impression. Everything's leading back to the tutorial for me because that's where I struggled. But the health system, I don't remember seeing a single thing about the health system in the tutorial. And you said it. The health system is complicated. So we should have at least had a basic understanding of the health system from the tutorial. Even if they didn't dive into the details, at least teach me how to bandage myself. Because I took one look at the health menu when I got injured the first time and just stopped. And I was like, am I looking at medical scans right now? Like, do I need to go to college for this? Because there's a lot here. And then I proceeded to take 3 or 4 minutes trying to figure out how to put a bandage on, and stop myself from bleeding out. So
My overall thoughts of Scum, and this is what I actually think, is again, there's a lot of potential in the game, but the early game is not well explained, or it's not intuitive. It's not easy to follow. It doesn't give you that sense of feeling. You just feel like, again, you're in a sea of codex entries and everything else. There's no combat guide. There's nothing to tell you about the different various mechanics. It doesn't tell you how inventory works. It doesn't tell you about other cool factors like there are mechanized robots in the military areas, or like there are airplanes, there are boats, there are ski mobiles that you can do. If you're wearing too heavy of clothing, you will sink like a rock and drown. Driving a car is super fun, but if you don't have a high enough driving skill, you will keep grinding the clutch, which is cool mechanics. There are so many cool things in this game. But again, I return back to the early game makes the game feel like something if you don't push through for hours and hours and hours, you're never going to have fun with this game and you're just going to end up quitting. And I kind of hope that they make it more intuitive and put a little bit more emphasis on that.
my impressions, I already stated that if it wasn't for research for the podcast, I probably would have stopped playing about an hour in. I'm sad to say that because I pressed through, because I kept playing, I saw more potential in the game. It is something that I want to revisit. It is something that I want to keep trying and try to get farther in and experience a little bit more of these areas that I was overwhelmed by. But if I was just playing this, if I just picked this up to play this on my own, I probably would have stopped about an hour in because the tutorial was such a slog. It was so difficult to get through, and it I didn't feel like I knew enough once I set out to survive. Now, I would have much rather either had no tutorial at all or had something that was very focused on getting me started in the world and getting me out there. We've talked about several other tutorials and several other games and how they kind of teach you the basics. And I think a lot of the other games we've covered have done it the right way. And I think this game just it leaves something to be desired for something that is so complex. We either need to have almost no tutorial at all, in my opinion, and completely throw you into the deep end and let you learn to swim. Or we need to have something that's a lot more focused and teaches you the basics a lot better and is a lot more clear. And I think that would keep people playing a lot more often. It would have kept me playing past an hour if that was the case.
Thank you very much for watching the State of Survival podcast. Join me in thanking Imogen119 and Red Falcon for helping us run the show. Thank you very much again. To talk for now.
See you in another dimension.